All right, welcome back to Keepin the Comics. So today we're diving back into the Ultimate Black Panther series here, and we're picking up on a few issues that we've missed so far with issues number 10 through 12. And it's here where we finally get an actual face-to-face encounter between the Black Panther and Khonshu. Not, of course, without quite a few build-up before we do get there, but we also do get to see more of what the Vibranium is doing to the Black Panther that sets up here another interesting storyline to follow this one. Now, what builds up to this here is that we initially start off with Moon Knight running away, and he's covering up a wound because you can see him bleeding out. Now, before he can get too far here, you see this explosion that knocks him into the air and eventually has him coming crashing down. Now, following that explosion here, we see the Black Panther, and he says, "It seems God has fallen, but can he find the strength to stand?" So Moon Knight tries to conjure up a weapon while he's screaming, with T'Challa then saying, "Oh." God screams. And when Moon Knight tries to attack a Black Panther, he shatters whatever weapon that he has, and then he pulls out those claws and he stabs Moon Knight here straight through the gut, because you can see his hands then come out all the way upon the other side. Now, in a savage way here, Black Panther just says to him, "And now God is dead." But then this is where things get a little bit weird, because there's this voice that says, "You serve well," to which the Black Panther responds, "I serve no one." And then the voice continues and says, "King of nothing, slave to the ancients, you serve the will of the cosmos. Do you think you could use the element without humility? Do you think you could control it?" And then the Black Panther responds, "I don't need vibranium." And I'm like, no, you probably do need vibranium, T'Challa. But then the voice replies back and says, "Strong words, slave, then free yourself." I'm like, whoa, okay, right? So then we see the Black Panther writhing in pain as he clutches his head. And it gets to the point where it looks like we can see the Black Panther almost peeling off his entire mask here, while the voice says, "You are vibranium." And as the Black Panther continues to writhe in agony, it's in this moment here, that's when we start to realize that this whole thing that happened was actually not real, and it was just T'Challa having another nightmare. Now, T'Challa has been having these dreams / nightmares here ever since he was stabbed by one of Moon Knight's men. And ever since that moment, he's felt like the vibranium continues to speak to him, but he's not sharing with anyone what's really happening, because as his wife Okoye asks him a question like, "What did you dream?" he just responds back by saying, "My dreams are mine to ponder, Okoye," which of course you can tell is causing some contention between both of them, because Okoye keeps seeing him suffer and having these nightmares, but he continues to be cold, and he continues to withdraw from her, from Shuri, and everyone in Wakanda. Now, this is something that has been going on here for a month, and Shuri, she wants a war, but the response here from the Black Panther to that was, "Tell Shuri that I dream of Khonshu, of Moon Knight, and tell her every dream he dies with his blood on my hands. This is not her war, it is mine, and it seems I have already won." Now, later on here after this, we do see a Moon Knight army outside in Africa, and it seems that they were expecting the Black Panther to show up here, but instead what they got was Princess Shuri, which of course he scoffs at a little bit here, but the whole point of this meeting was that it seems that the Moon Knight wanted to talk, which is kind of funny to me, right? Because he was calling Black Panther a coward for not showing up, while at the same time Moon Knight didn't even show up himself. Like, he sent out an army with a different leader here, but I'm gonna leave that irony alone, right? Now, this man continues to say, "Listen, Moon Knight has an offer for Wakanda, an offer of peace," but Shuri tells him to be careful, and then he responds back by saying, "You are one, you're outnumbered, and I am not the one who needs to be in caution." But Shuri, she's got a trump card here, because when she puts her hands up, to their surprise, course, the Dora Milaje, they come out in their numbers. Now, for a moment, it looks like he's about to strike back, but instead what he does is pull out this device, and then he shows them what he means, or that what he says is true. And he says, I bring a pathway to peace, a proposal, equitable split of the territory, the kingdom of Khonshu and Ra, the kingdom of Wakanda, West Africa allowed to choose its alliance, democracy, which of course to Shuri basically sounds like blasphemy, because she's like, you want us to give you geography, especially considering that you tried to kill us in this very place. But he simply just states, listen, Wakanda is a nation that has lived in isolation. The only reason why you guys even care about the fate of the regions right now is because of what Ra and Khonshu have been doing. So then Shuri responds back, she's like, you've brainwashed villages, taken their people and enslaved them to this madness by pretending to be a god. There will only be peace when you leave this land, or when you are driven from it. So then he simply responds back. He's like, so Wakanda wants war? Then he says, I also have a different offer to share then. I suspect that your king can see me now, and that your technology aids it here, as he looks basically directly into the screen. So let me speak to him. And then he continues on. He's like, there are ancient ways to settle conflicts, ways that do not have to involve the innocent or those who serve either of their nations, a single combat. The Black Panther faces Moon Knight. The victor decides the fate of this land, of Vibranium, of the future. So she asks, you want to fight my brother? To which he responds back and says, my master wants to kill him, but he hides behind his forces. And I'm like, so is the Moon Knight. I'm gonna leave that alone, right? And even as he knows that he does not understand Vibranium or the power Khonshu has found within it, will the coward king face my master? And that's when we do see, or we pan over to the Black Panther here, and he responds back, yes. Now, of course, as you can imagine, the Black Panther's wife, Okoye, does not want him to do this fight, but Black Panther is confident. He's like, listen, I can overtake him. And Shuri actually shares the same sentiments as Okoye, which is not something that happens often, okay? But she does say he wants to battle to the death. That's what Shuri's saying to the Black Panther. But the Black Panther, once again, he's being confident. He's like, listen, I will be victorious. How he defines victory is ultimately up to him. But the concern that they have is that the Black Panther is still not 100%. Once again, though, the Black Panther, being confident, says, I am king and sound. Tell him I accept. Whenever he likes, deliver the message to him. And then he basically just tells them to get out and just to leave. And it's in this moment where we can clearly see, right, that the Black Panther is not 100%. He's not 100% himself here. To be this brash with Okoye and then also Shuri, that's definitely not like him. Well, at least not to Okoye. Shuri, that's a different conversation. Now, the one last thing that he does tell them here is to tell Matron Amala that he needs to seek her, but that he only wants to seek her alone. Now, while both of them walk away here from the Black Panther, they discuss this theory that they have. One of which she mentions is that, of course, Vibranium does have secrets, right? But she continues to say that secrets that no generation has sensed or found. Then she continues, she's like, what if Vibranium has a consciousness? Which of course, Matron Amala has already mentioned already. And of course, T'Challa has said already, I believe, to Okoye, or, you know, Shuri continues, she's like, or something captured within it. And what if it has given rise to two kingdoms to place them in conflict like pawns? But one thing that Okoye is wondering is, why would Vibranium want war? So then Shuri replies, because of what remains after whatever that would be. So then now later on, we catch up with the Black Panther again, but this time he's having another dream or another nightmare, because in this one we see where the Black Panther, with his hands covered in blood, or claws covered in blood here, with the Moon Knight's people looking on, as well as Okoye and Shuri looking on, he's going to town right now on Moon Knight. With the moon right behind him, he says, you are no god, as we see Moon Knight's mask basically half off. And then he tells Moon Knight, he's like, bleed into the soil you have tried to conquer, and then I will finish you. But Okoye tries to stop him, and she says, I should say, my king, he is finished. And in this moment, the Black Panther says internally, he's like, all I can feel is hatred. All I am is hatred. And the Moon Knight tries to call out for mercy after that, with the Black Panther's mask also partially being off, and we can see these panther teeth coming from him. And then he says, a soul within me wants his flesh and blood. And in that moment, he begins to roar, and then he goes on the attack. And when he is done, he screams to Moon Knight's people, kneel, kneel. And in that same time, he starts to hold up the head of Khonshu in the sky. And in this moment, that is when the Black Panther wakes up, and we hear the voice of Matron Amala, and she says, tell me, what do you see? So T'Challa then responds back, and it's like, it's not what I saw, it's what I felt. And he tells her that he murdered Moon Knight under the light of the moon, and how he felt joy, but it wasn't his own joy that he felt. It was something else that was joyful, something that was inside of him. So Amala asks a question. She's like, does this frighten you? So then he responds back. He's like, I'm not a murderer, Matron Amala. But then she responds back. She's like, but yet on the next full moon, you will fight him to the death. You have agreed to this, and you are right to do so because it will bring peace. Now, at this point here, Matron, as it pertains to Matron Amala, she's basically predicted all of these things that were going to happen, right? She spoke about how the Vibranium had a conscience. She discussed how there was going to be a war between Wakanda, Khonshu, and Ra, how the Black Panther would beg, which, although it hasn't fully happened yet, is kind of sort of happening with him feeling the urge to give into the Vibranium and exactly what it wants. So then Matron Amala continues on. She's like, his followers will serve you. The kingdom he has built will become yours. You will explore his powers, their powers, and you will walk toward our destiny. Now, of course, Black Panther wants to know, like, what is that? So she mentions how the Voodoo Khan have waited for generations for this moment, for his bloodline to realize what needs to be, for Wakanda and Vibranium to take their throne in the world. How she is no priestess of peace, but instead she's a witness to the birth of a new age. And she does not fear the Black Panther's visions, she embraces them, and the Black Panther should as well. Now, in this moment, the Black Panther admittedly says to her, you know what's happening to me. You know what I feel, and you know what I'm sensing. I know that there is a little trust between us, which is actually kind of funny because the Black Panther doesn't trust her. She's never really shown any indifference towards trusting him, which of course he admits, but he's like, listen, I have kept your ways at a distance. And he does ask her right now, he's like, tell me what I am becoming. And then she simply just responds back. She's like, you know what you are becoming. You're becoming the great vessel. The God substance speaks to you. Your father could not hear it. Your grandfather could not hear it, but you can hear it. The chosen one, right? I'm just adding those words in there. And then he responds back and says, Vibranium. But then she replies back. She's like, a ridiculous word of science for something that is far greater. You and your rationalism have come to the water's edge. Beyond is the sea of true knowledge, which the Black Panther chooses to ask then in this moment. He's like, Amala, in all honesty, what God do you serve? And then she replies back, the Voodoo Khan serve you, my king, and how the moon will rise and you will face Khonshu and Ra. No man is greater than his destiny. Let that guide you, and how she will pray for him. Now, this finally leads here to the moment of truth, the fight between the Black Panther here and Moon Knight. Now, as the Black Panther walks in, we can see the people of Africa. We can see Wakanda's, we can see Moon Knight's people, his soldiers, his followers. And the Black Panther mentions, he's like, he comes here with pageantry, but then the Moon Knight himself shows up and says, I come with destiny. Now, Okoye realizes that the Black Panther is quite calm considering the current situation, to which the Black Panther then responds back and says, I do not fear the Moon Knight. However, I do fear what Moon Knight will force me to do, how they need to see his frailties, his vulnerabilities. It's not about the victor tonight, it's about how the victory is won. Now, meanwhile, Moon Knight has his own confidence. He says, this will be the end of one age and the beginning of another. By blood spilled, the page shall turn. And in the next moment, the Black Panther tells Okoye, my queen, tell our people not to react. Do not celebrate, do not show stress. Tonight, we will show them that Wakanda is unrelenting. For this land, I asked this land to guide my actions. And then he gives Okoye that movie scene hug. Now, in the next moment here, Khonshu asks the Black Panther, does the Vibranium whisper to you, Black Panther? Does it give you dreams of victory? Perhaps it has led you to your death. But then the Black Panther responds and he's like, let us see which of our dreams speaks the truth. So then the Moon Knight continues, set your eyes on this moment as he speaks to his people. This is the first step in this continent's future, the end of limitation and the punishment of blasphemers. And as he points over to the Black Panther, in that moment, he conjures up his weapon. The Moon Knight does, and he says, the moon shall see you fall, as he tries to attack the Black Panther. And I'll be honest here, you can clearly tell that Moon Knight is just fighting with anger because he just keeps on like slashing and missing. But he does say, under your armor, all there is fear. And while his constituents scream out with joy, hail Moon Knight, but then in that moment, something happens because the Black Panther's eyes get fixated on someone or something or some people that are around him. And he asks the question, he says, who? And then when you look up behind him, behind the charging Moon Knight, we see what look like 4 men who are like these shadowy figures here with 2 red eyes on the left, and then the other 2, they look like 2 lighter eyes. And as the Moon Knight gets closer, he says, break your faithful Panther. But when he goes to drop his hand down to strike T'Challa, the Black Panther just simply catches his hand and then forces him to drop his weapon. Then T'Challa lands a kick right to the dome, knocking off Moon Knight's mask. And in the background, there are some people who look perplexed, while at the same time, Khonshu's followers are like, hold on. Impossible. And as Moon Knight lays on the ground with a bloody mouth, once again, we see the same shadowy figures, but this time it's 5 of them. One of them says, kill him, referring to, of course, the Moon Knight. So the Black Panther pulls out those claws, and as the Moon Knight struggles to get up, that shadowy voice says again, kill him. But then Khonshu says, no, I was promised, which then makes me believe that just like T'Challa, he's been having visions and dreams as well. Then the Black Panther pulls his arm up and gets ready to strike, but then there's like a lasso that comes in and like grabs his hand and stops him. Listen, no, it's not Wonder Woman's lasso, okay? But that lasso does grab him and then starts to pull him back, preventing him from killing Khonshu. And when he turns back to see who it is, or I guess we turn back to see who it is, we see that it's Storm, Killmonger, and then also the ultimate Doctor Strange. And she says, you must be T'Challa. And I am Inan. Your friends have told me a lot about you. No idea who this Moon guy is, but he doesn't matter. What matters is you have a Vibranium problem, and it might not be too late to save everything you believe in. Now listen, what do you think here about this particular issue and series? It does kind of feel like the whole main point of the storyline between Black Panther and Moon Knight keeps on being usurped here by these other sort of storylines, which is kind of annoying in a lot of ways. But at the same time, this is also kind of going back to a previous storyline that they hadn't fully completed as of yet either, right? So I'm curious to see what happens next. What are your thoughts about this whole entire thing here? Leave it down below in the comments. Also, if you've been looking to keep up here with the Ultimate Black Panther series and you have missed some issues here, we do have a playlist on this channel here where you can find all of those previous videos. If you can also do us a favor here and leave a like on this video for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also, we did start a new Patreon here, so we would love your support. If you could take a look at that link that's down below in the description here, we would much appreciate here so we could continue to bring you new content. Thank you as always for watching, and until next time, thank you for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye.